Hi, my name is Tova Brandt, and I work here at the Museum of Danish America as the Ravenholt Curator of Danish-American culture. Today it's my pleasure to give you a virtual tour of our art exhibition that we're just calling Curator's Choice. These are all pieces that are part of the museum's permanent art collection. Our art collection includes pieces from Danish artists as well as Danish-American artists. One of our pieces here by Hans Carstensen, who is a Danish immigrant, but who became very fascinated by his adopted landscape. So here we see a lighthouse landscape that perhaps could be a Danish scene, but is actually from the Michigan Upper Peninsula, painted around the year 2000. Similarly, the story of Ole Vikhorst, another Danish immigrant artist who became fascinated with the American West and became particularly well known for scenes of cowboys, western scenes, ranchers, and this one of the pieces that the museum acquired from the collection at Dana College. And sometimes our art collection comes to us from donors who might not know specifically about the artist of Curator, but the piece itself has been significant in a Danish immigrant family's experience. This scene, a landscape of a late 19th or early 20th century Danish farm scene, this was a prized possession of the family who donated it to the museum. So sometimes these works of art have stories because of the artist, or because of the subject matter, or because of how the piece itself has traveled from Denmark to the United States, almost itself an immigrant. If we look down here, you can see that our art collection is not just framed works for the wall, but also works of sculpture. This is a work by Elmer Petersen, a Danish-American artist who specializes in bronze sculpture. This was done also for Dana College, and it's called Seated Woman with Bird, completed around 1962-63 when Elmer Petersen was an artist in residence at Dana. And another Danish-American artist, Jess Smith, who really continued the Danish wood carving tradition. He was born in Denmark, but came to the United States, settled in the area around Luck, Wisconsin, and is known for church carvings, altar carvings, and for some commission pieces like this piece called Dannevirke. Looking back into Danish history as well, a newer acquisition for the museum is this 18th century portrait of Queen Louisa of Denmark. She was actually born into the British royal family. Her father would become George II of Great Britain, but she was married to Frederick V, who was the King of Denmark and Norway from 1746 to 1766. Here we have a piece titled simply Village, again acquired from Dana College. The artist is Theodor Ulrichsen. We're not quite sure what the date is of this piece, but it captures a snapshot of the Danish village life for the perhaps the fall or winter time of year, which is not what we usually think of as the most artistically compelling, but he's definitely succeeded in drawing our eye. Here we have a pair of portraits by Sven Kirk. On the left we have a self-portrait of the artist, and on the right a portrait of his wife. Sven Kirk was a Danish artist. He's lived his entire life and career in Denmark. But his son, Olaf Kirk, immigrated to the United States, and these were some of the works that he brought with him. On the background in both of these works are paintings that are also likely works by Sven Kirk, and so it becomes a wonderful representation not only of the individuals, but of their domestic surroundings and of his body of work and his artistic interests. Over here we have two more works that offer different snapshot views of life in Denmark, the architecture, the landscape. Here we have a flower market scene, really market day at Bishop's Square near the Aarhus Cathedral. So a kind of typical view of daily life around the 1920s or early 30s. We know that the artist passed away in 1931, and so this seems to be relatively close to that year. Next, we have just another view of the cityscape, canal scenes from Copenhagen. Another interpretation of the landscape that invites us to place ourselves in the scene and enjoy the view, the light, the water, and the time of year. On this wall we collected 5 small-scale images, but each of them really have the power to compel our attention. Most notably here a work by Michael Anker, one of the best-known artists of the Scape arts colony at the very northern tip of Jutland in the turn of the 20th century. Michael Anker did several studies for one of his best-known work, which was in the final product, a very large-scale piece called Will He Round the Point. This is one of the studies for that well-known larger work. We have a collection of individual portraits here. Some we don't know a lot about. This older gentleman in the early to mid-19th century, which is from the same family as this young boy's portrait. Clearly a family that has a history and a class history of being able to capture and preserve their family members in painted portraits. Here we have not a oil painting, but more likely an oil crayon drawing of a young girl named Annalisa Clement. She was about 7 years old at the time that this portrait was done. She actually was born in Japan to Danish parents who had both moved to Japan because of their careers, met there, and married, and Annalisa was born in Japan. The family was still there when World War II broke out. The family was placed under house arrest for the duration of the war, and at the end of the war then moved on to the United States and spent the rest of their lives in this country. And here we have another Western scene by another Danish immigrant artist who became fascinated with the American West. Olaf Seltzer spent a lot of time in Montana and was particularly known for again scenes of Native Americans, of ranching, of kind of the classical Western mythology. One of the most contemporary works that we have on view is a trio of framed pieces by a Danish immigrant artist named Annie Holm, who lives in the Chicago area. This triptych is called Passport to the United States, and she has used the actual passport document and reproduced that and altered it in such a way that really, depicts the challenges of people to try to get into the United States through various visa pathways by looking deeper into the details of how she's altered this otherwise very familiar document. It's her commentary on how stressful and confusing the process can be for someone from another country looking for ways to settle in the U.S. As a complement to that, we have here another smaller bronze work by Elmer Peterson called Immigrant Couple. Obviously from an earlier generation than Annie Holm, and perhaps a couple that has successfully made that journey and settled in the U.S. Annie Holm was featured in the museum's Danish-American Artist series, as was Mia Furlough, a Danish-American artist and lawyer from the Chicago area. This piece called Four Graves. Mia is an artist who spends part-time in her law practice but has intentionally carved out space in her life and in her family life to focus on her painting and her artistic expression. She really credits that interest in trying to strike that balance to her Danish upbringing. Her mother is a Danish immigrant, and she has spent a lot of time in Denmark with her Danish family members. This carved head of Christ is by Gutzon Borglum, who most people know, if they know the name, as the sculptor of Mount Rushmore. This is one of the smaller pieces that was commissioned by a Danish Lutheran church in New York City. Behind it on the wall, you can see maybe a different style than Gutzon Borglum's. This is a poster by Per Arnoldi, a Danish graphic artist who is particularly well known for his posters design. He's known for bold, solid colored design, often using primary colors. This piece in particular commemorates the 40th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, May 5th, 1945. And in the center of the gallery, we have a range of pieces that really represent not the formal academic fine art that represents most of the pieces on the wall, but the folk art that would have been a part of daily life for Danes for generations. And we have a lot of different types of objects here that represent the chip carving traditions, whether in a mangle board here, which would be likely a courtship gift, a tool to iron clothes, but decorated to really be an expression of affection between a man and his fiancée. And we can see how those chip carving traditions have been refined for more formal pieces like this tray, which dates probably to the early 20th century. And another wing of wood carving traditions, which is the figure carving traditions, more playful, more decorative, but the Scandinavian style of flat plain figure carving, it has its wonderful expression here. This figure is actually done by Edwin Smith Peterson, a grandson to Jess Smith, the carver of the Danish-American panel on the opposite wall. This exhibition is designed to be a sampling of some of our new highlights, a sampling of some of our favorite pieces, and an opportunity for our visitors to really see some of the range of artistic objects that are not often on view from our collection. So we hope that you've enjoyed this little insight into Curator's choice of art from the permanent collection.